Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Join us every Wednesday to learn about the latest cutting-edge developments in the real-time communications industry. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSWITCH Solutions. Get support and professional services directly from the creators of the FreeSWITCH open source project, solving your issues in the most efficient, stable, and scalable way possible. Get the FreeSWITCH advantage. Visit freeswitch.com. Also brought to you by ClueCon, the premier technology conference for developers by developers. Join us every summer in Chicago. ClueCon kicks off on Monday with our annual hackathon, The Coder Games, followed by 3 days of technology-rich presentations discussing telecom, WebRTC, and IoT from developers around the world. To learn more, visit ClueCon.com or call 877-74-CLUE.
And welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is the 26th of December. Fresh off Christmas, you've got most of the FreeSWITCH team here today. So, and we're going to be joined by the leader of the FreeSWITCH project, Anthony Minessale. For you guys that don't know Anthony, he's been around open source VoIP for many, many, many years. He invented FreeSWITCH. He is launching a new company called SignalWire, and they've got a lot of cool products out there. So he's going to be talking today about FreeSWITCH, where it's been, where it's going, and a lot of other things that he wants to get out there. So if you have questions for him, be sure you tag either me or Abby on the FreeSWITCH Slack channel or on IRC, and we can get those proxied in to Tony so he can answer them later. Before we get to that, though, we're going to jump over and we're going to cut right to Community Corner, guys. So let's go see what Mr. Mavrutis has for us this week. Mike, how you doing?
You got anything, Mavrutis?
Merry Christmas, everybody. So today we have a question from the FreeSWITCH mailing list, and the question is from Julian Terrison. And the question, we're going to ask Mike Jarris. It says, "Hi, everyone. I'm looking for advice on this issue. In the following scenario, where A and B are PSTN subscribers, step one, a call FreeSWITCH answers and plays audio prompt. When the prompt ends, FreeSWITCH attempts to bridge A with B. B answers. I set no local execute on answer hook to park A and play B on the audio prompt warning message when B answers." So Mike, what's the proper way to do this?
All right, so there's a couple different approaches you can do to do this. Two features we have. One is to execute something on the B leg before the bridge. It's execute pre-bridge or something like that. We'll get the specific var in the comments. The other way to do it would be to use the group confirm functionality. Both of those will essentially leave the A leg kind of stranded for a second, and right before it bridges, will go ahead and play something to the B leg. The trick with the group confirm approach is to use the group confirm file exec.
Check the audio.
That will run an application instead of looking for, group confirm key exec. That'll run an application instead of expecting the end user to press something. And then for the group confirm file, you do playback in the sound file. That's probably the easiest way. And then all of this, keep dealing with the A leg before the, before the bridge and all that. The pre-bridge execute may work as well. Just depends on exactly what you want to do. The group confirm may let you do a little bit more, including do an execute extension and all kinds of other things, and decide if you want to bridge them or not. So you've got a little bit more flexibility there as well. So Those are the two ways you could do it. There's no need to manually put the A-leg on park there, and there's no need to actually call answer because the B-leg is already answered at that point. So both of those should work well.
So what really happened here? What really happened here when the example was Julian got a little too overly complicated in his configuration?
Yeah, I'm unclear on what exactly happened. Sounds like he tried to run park on the A-leg while it was bridging or something like that. And it's just completely unnecessary and runs things through a bunch of other states that it doesn't need to be in. So I think he just got far more complicated than he needed to. The broadcast and the group confirm both kind of do all of those things for you already. So much easier this way.
All right, well, thank you, Mike. Answers from the experts. And back to you, Ken.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jarrus, Mr. Mavrudas. And hey, now we're going to, we've got Anthony coming up. And so let's go over and see what Anthony's doing. Anthony, I believe you have Abby there with us today. How are you guys doing?
Hi, we're doing great. Thank you very much. As you can see, we're all set for ClueCon Weekly, but before we start talking about FreeSWITCH and SignalWire and the industry and all that fun stuff, I have a couple announcements. Of course, if you are watching this on YouTube and you are not yet on our Slack channel, make sure and go and do that. After this video is over, I will put a link down in the comments. If you have not yet joined our Slack community channel, we have both FreeSWITCH and SignalWire channels, so if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend it. If you have any questions for people who are familiar with FreeSWITCH or some of our team leaders, or if you just want to chat, it's a perfect place to do that. Make sure to follow us on social media. 2019, we have a lot of exciting things coming. So make sure to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that fun stuff. And we're going to be posting a lot of fun announcements. Last but not least, if you are interested in sponsoring ClueCon, make sure to email Sharon at sharon@freeswitch.com. We have a lot of exciting things happening, like I say, time after time again. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I definitely suggest it. And a quick shout out to VoiceTel. Thank you for sponsoring, of course, the boat tour this year. It is always a big hit, and it is always a lot of fun. So that's all I have for announcements. So now we can jump into some questions we have about FreeSWITCH. So our first question is, what led you to start a telephony project completely from scratch? Like, what was your inspiration for that? What made you decide to start this project? Things like that.
Well, I went back to early 2000s. We were working on a telecom project involved doing a queue system that required web browser integration. So we were trying to build like a call center kind of application back when early days before those were so readily available. So they were very expensive. So we thought we would make our own to save money. But we found that there weren't that many choices. Inevitably, that led us to Asterisk, which we all know well. And we spent a few years prototyping some applications in there. And that kind of gave us the tip of the iceberg of what we wanted to do. But we found that because Asterisk was kind of designed to be a PBX, building it as a application engine had a lot of challenges. So we put a lot of work into, trying to force that. And it was really kind of putting a lot of unnecessary burden on the Asterisk team as well, because we were working on that project, and the stuff we were trying to do was pretty forward thinking, and putting changes that would cause stability issues, trying to add and bend the will of how Asterisk works. So one day we were just like, I think that we should probably, start with the model that we have in mind for being able to do some of the problems that we're trying to solve, because we had an ISP running, and we had this ideas to build these hosted applications and integrate with web browsers and all kinds of other stuff. So one day we just decided, let's just try this. Sat down in an empty folder, started building basic core. We went for, I think we started in the spring. We had our first ClueCon conference that summer. Got some more input from a bunch of smart people. I think by the fall of 2005, we had kind of a prototype that would actually run in Windows, Mac, and Linux and BSD. That had some very basic functionality. And by January 2006, we launched to the public and started accepting downloads and feedback from the community that we were building up. We started with an empty RC channel and a brand new copy of listserv mailing list. Went for, the next thing you know, it's like 14 years later, and every year there's more stuff and newer things happening in the world that we kind of put our own twist on, and that's basically what led us to where we are now.
So obviously, like you were talking about the community has a lot of people. I think there's 1 million end users. So the community is full of a lot of people. So like what type of people, what type of companies use FreeSWITCH?
There's a pretty wide matrix of who uses FreeSWITCH. We have everything from hobbyists trying to make sure that their own private little phone system works in their house, all the way to companies like Amazon building products like Amazon Connect out of it, or Netflix using it for their tech support engine, or other big companies like Dialpad. And there's a very large community. We don't really discriminate either way. We like to be helpful when we can. Some of the stuff we're doing is pretty cutting edge. WebRTC got popular in 2013, and we're still building it. So it's really kind of found a niche into any kind of solution. One of the ideas was that we made it modular so that you can combine the different loadable modules to produce behavior sets that match what you're trying to do. In a given network configuration, you might have 5 different FreeSWITCH servers set up all differently as different roles in kind of a larger system. So very versatile in that way. That's one of our design goals, was to be as flexible as possible for developers.
Very cool. So yeah, like obviously we talked a little bit at the beginning, and you talked about how things are always getting more cutting edge. Things are changing. We started up SignalWire. A lot of cool, exciting things are happening. So what is the future of that community? What does that look like?
Well, we've been pretty resistant about using newer communications tools, just out of, I guess, stubbornness and being set in our ways, because we all kind of come from an old school environment. I've continued to write FreeSWITCH with GNU Emacs, running on a Linux prompt. Don't use any IDEs or any stuff like that. And we've always used like original Mailman mailing server and RC channel that we've had ever since we started the project. But it's really kind of getting to the point where we have just so the community is getting bigger and you need to get messages around faster. So we gave in, and once we started getting more resources with SignalWire, we created a Slack environment, and we gatewayed that along with the old IRC channel. So if you're in there, you can kind of go to either side. You can come into the future with Slack, or you can stay in IRC, but they can communicate with each other. It's kind of like a time portal. And then you can, so far we have that same old mailing list, but we're also going to launch some more stuff, probably a GUI forum. And we have some blogging stuff that we like to do. We're going to have we basically put it on the umbrella of signalwire.community. It's an actual URL you can go to. and it takes you right to the Slack sign-up page. And from there, we have a bunch of different channels for different resources.
Cool. So, of course, the community is expanding. What other things can we expect in the future in terms of maybe what will we see in like FreeSWITCH? What is the future of SignalWire going to look like? What are like some of your plans, the team's plans for building things out in the future?
Well, FreeSWITCH is, as I was saying, we've been in a really long development cycle of WebRTC functionality, which continues to evolve. Several of the browsers are making major shifts into how they're going to implement the WebRTC endpoint. We try and stay up to date with that. There's big news that Microsoft is going to switch to using Chromium, which kind of makes it a little easier for us because they were like yet another implementation we had to work with. So I'm hoping that will make things a little better. But then Chrome and Google are actually making a whole bunch of changes to the way they do stuff. So we have to keep up with that. Implementing, trying to get better and more reliable video and reducing latency and bandwidth. And so we spent a lot of time on that, and we're still probably not done with it. Something that we're doing this year that's really kind of evolving still, but we're working on building some unit testing framework, which is something that is very needed. And we have like 2 million lines of code, that's just that we wrote in conjunction with I think there's another 2 or 3 million in dependencies that we have to kind of interact with and make sure that we're compatible with it. It always changes as you're updating your operating system. And so we're putting some effort into getting some unit testing and really just trying to expand the outreach with the community so that we can get functionality stabilized in the things that are most popular. And really that's what kind of brought us to deciding to do SignalWire. Because as a small group, the first decade of FreeSWITCH was done basically by a handful of people, like less than 5, just working alone in a little room. And there's only so much that you can do with the community, like exponentially growing. So one of the ideas was that we would start SignalWire that adds value add to just the basic stuff that FreeSWITCH can do. If you're a heavy lifter and understand how to build stuff, FreeSWITCH is great, but there's still some learning curve when it comes to doing more advanced things. And there's another layer of functionality that you have to create yourself that can become a burden, especially figuring out how to scale and host it. So one of our goals is to kind of take functionality that would otherwise add even more burden to your development and kind of give you the exact building blocks and environment you would need to build a application. So it's really kind of for developers who are in a commercial stance, looking to build products and wanting to have a solution that will, extend their FreeSWITCH usage into something that can solve bigger scaled problems. But that still allows you to use original FreeSWITCH as the endpoints. We just released a new module called Mod SignalWire that interacts together. So you can take your FreeSWITCH open source instance and provision phone calls and terminate text messages and stuff into your FreeSWITCH server, and then kind of do your last mile with your own code.
Cool. So our next question that we have gathered from everybody, we have been traveling a lot more. FreeSWITCH has been traveling a lot more. We used to kind of just go to ClueCon and call into some other things, but we've been going to a bunch of different conferences. We were just at Asterisk. Of course, we were at ClueCon, and hopefully you all will be this year too. What other conferences did you guys go to recently?
Well, we were recently at the IT Expo. Well, we were at IT Expo last year, and then we were at IIT in Chicago. And this year we're going to IT Expo again, which is in a few weeks. That's down in Florida, so that never hurts. This time of year.
Yeah, especially here, it's really cold.
Yeah, we live in the cold, so it's a pretty good environment we're going to do some FreeSWITCH training. For anyone that wants to get their feet wet, and I think it's pretty inexpensive. Yes. Like a modest fee to get into a FreeSWITCH training. that goes all day and kind of gives you the basics on how to set a server up and connect phones to it and put phone numbers into it and build your own kind of little mini telco in one day.
Yeah, so now that we've been to a couple different conferences, what would you say your favorite part about actually attending these conferences in person is? Is there what's exciting? Like, do you like seeing everybody in person? Do you like teaching people about FreeSWITCH? Like, what's one of the benefits of actually attending these things in person?
Well, this is the 15th year of ClueCon, so I would say, me personally, it's not having to worry about anything because it's not my conference. So going to other people's conference, I get to just kind of look around and be a guest rather than worrying about every detail like I have to at ClueCon.
That's true. It's less.
There's still a lot of logistics that go on, but it's only our little 20 by 10 square or whatever we're in. We have to worry about, and not the entire thing.
It's just a booth, not a whole conference. So besides conferences, or maybe this was your favorite thing, what are some favorite things that have happened in 2018 in terms of, it could be like features that you guys made, things that happened at conferences, ClueCon, things that happened at ClueCon, just like what are like the highlights of 2018 for the FreeSWITCH?
Well, I think becoming our own destiny was one of the most important things. We announced at ClueCon that we started SignalWire, which is a company that will help us to grow without having to be dependent on, over the years we've had a sponsor here, a sponsor there, companies that you'd have to kind of rely on to help fund the employment of some of the developers. And it was really kind of something that we always wanted to solve. So creating our own company really opened the door to bring together the bigger family of developers that we really wanted to see working with us. But of course, you can't just get them to all volunteer when they have jobs and that they want to have and families to feed and stuff. So building an economic model around being able to bring together developers that we've known forever and build something amazing, that really our goal is to kind of to change the face of telecom still. Like we've already been doing that with at a lower level with FreeSWITCH, but our bigger goals with SignalWire is to kind of take the rest of the world who still doesn't even know how to build their own applications and stuff and make it easier for them.
Yeah, we definitely talked about a lot of that at ClueCon. We'll definitely be talking about it some more. In terms of ClueCon, how did that come about? We talked about it a little bit a couple minutes ago about how ClueCon came before FreeSWITCH actually. So just diving deeper into that, what really inspired you to start the conference, and what makes it different than other conferences? This kind of has a different kind of vibe.
We started the first ClueCon came during that time period when we had sort of FreeSWITCH was a thing, but it wasn't called FreeSWITCH yet. It was just an idea, and it didn't do anything other than turn on and off. We just had the core of it. So all you could do is start the application and quit again. So we were working on how are we going to design it, and there were a few conferences already, but there was Astricon, but it was only about Asterisk. And through the time that we've been working together, there were so many other projects that were about telephony that are kind of, I thought significant. And I tried to, work together with those guys because, you have Camilio and OpenSIPs who were there, SIR back then. They were one thing, but now they're two. But, that was a SIP proxy, and that was kind of an important element in telephony setups. And, us being a back-to-back user agent and switch and high-level application server kind of work together. And even Asterisk, as a PBX, it all kind of puts together kind of a larger community, like a meta community of all these other projects. So our inspiration for that was to have something that was kind of agnostic to one kind of thing. So we do get a lot of FreeSWITCH related people that come to ClueCon, but we don't really focus on only allowing that. from the beginning, we've always kind of invited everybody. So we've had all these different projects give their state of the year. Even Asterisk is there. So like there's these kind of like false assumptions that we have some kind of war with Asterisk, but we don't. We love hanging out with them. We go to Astricon. We were just there in October. It was pretty fun. It was the first one since the SignalWire thing, so that was fun to see in person. So it's really kind of like the point of ClueCon is just to have that collaboration happen, and then about networking it. And one of the reasons it's sort of different is we just didn't know what we were doing. We just we can have a conference, and we started it, and kind of happenstance of us not being cookie cutter, or going and finding a place to have a conference the way everyone else does. We sort of found our own type of conference environment and brand. So here we come. Year number 15 is about to come in about a week. So I think the signups are even going to be open early for everybody. We might be doing some cool 15th year anniversary celebration type of promotions.
Oh yes, keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely be posting about that. Or if you subscribe to the newsletter, we'll have some cool promotions in there. So you talked about how not everybody who comes to ClueCon is necessarily part of the FreeSWITCH team or even a FreeSWITCH user. It's big. We just celebrate open source in general, and even then just telecom in general, and then even then just technology in general. So if you can't think back this far, that's okay. But do you have any good stories or a speaker that really stood out to you, like a talk you heard at ClueCon that really you personally found interesting?
I wouldn't say there's one that's any better than the rest. I mean, after 15 years and 4 straight days of speakers, we've had some repeats. Some of the more memorable moments include the first one was probably the most crazy of them all. It was very primitive in design, but we had a lot of different interesting things happen, including a police raid. It wasn't any of us, but the hotel we were at kind of had some kind of issue going on with one of the other guests. I always look forward to having some sort of WebRTC roundtable type of thing, because it's sort of it's a good time to vent, I would say. There's a lot of politics in WebRTC, which are, and we need to let some of that anger out that we established trying to build everything, because a lot of times they'll chase after getting something working, and then they change their mind and redo it, and the next day it's all broken again. It's kind of there's the standards kind of nightmare that we've all lived. It's kind of being part of that for the first time. A lot of the internet protocols we've developed over the years have been already established well before we started, but this is one of the first times we're working on something that's evolving while we're implementing it. So it's got its own fun challenges. So getting all those guys together and having them hash out why stuff is the way it is, that's probably the one I like the most.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Another thing, we always ask people these questions at ClueCon, just kind of to get a feel for, what vibes with people, what maybe they'd like to see differently, or some things they'd like to add. And we always hear that people are always coming up with new ideas, which is really fun, because everyone who's there is actually a programmer. There's not a lot of salespeople, or of course they're welcome, but a lot of the people who tend to come are developers, so they're always talking about the things they're working on. And we've had a couple fun new ideas, new business ideas, new kind of ideas coming out of ClueCon. So that's another thing people really like, which I think is fun. It makes us different, I think. So in terms of those new ideas and stuff, of course we talked a little bit about where FreeSWITCH is going in the future, but as an expert in the industry, do you have any ideas of where maybe just telephony and the communications industry in general is moving towards in the future? Trends, or what's going to be more popular, what kind of changes we might be seeing in the future?
Well, I think that what's quite clear is the digital transformation of telecom is just starting. Everything that we know in our bubble is really kind of the first stage in a larger transformation, which is taking place. We're kind of, I would say, like in the second stage. We started out, when we built FreeSWITCH, everything was physical equipment still, and we were the crazy ones, like trying to build a soft switch that, everyone was okay with the Asterisk being a PBX because it's just you plugged hardware in the back and terminated calls into it. But moving calls from one machine to another, doing like high density SIP or serving applications that were completely driven in software seemed ludicrous. But we've already got like half the lifespan of FreeSWITCH has seen AWS and Google Cloud show up, and everybody is trying to move as much as they can from their physical data centers into hosted servers. So telecom still has a long way to go on that. There's over $1 trillion in market of telephony. That's still, I would say, like a huge percent of it is either still physical hardware or is, like not fully implemented as software. So if a company wants to take their own infrastructure and cloud enable it, that kind of requires retiring servers, building virtual machines, running them in the cloud. And then when it comes to telephony, they'll find they still have some physical limitations on how they can do that properly. There's some SIP termination options and stuff, but like when it comes to the more complex application layers, there's a long way to go. And that's kind of what our goal has always been, was to make that easier and work better and to be possible. What we found with our first, decade of development is that we produced FreeSWITCH, which is something that can run as pure software and can be run in the cloud and as a virtual machine. And it gives you a lot of environment to work on. There's a whole, can't even list all the modules anymore. We're working on packaging all those. But there's still kind of a learning curve when it comes to dealing with, if you just start from scratch and you want to just use FreeSWITCH for a common purpose, like you might be able to find someone else to kind of set up a server environment you can clone or whatever, but you still have kind of a lot of stuff to work on as far as like uniting many servers and figuring out how to scale when you want to have, as your usage goes up, to balloon out the servers and be able to get a bunch of different stuff to cooperate. So there's a lot of work on that still. I mean, you've seen stuff like some virtual PBXs doing okay. That model is something we've seen. It's sort of evolved into, using virtual machines in a way to sort of stack up endless instances of a software that used to run in a physical server is kind of like a first step, but we thought that there could be much more to do in order to make that more efficient. So we've been, our company is focused on doing our part and trying to change the face of telephony by putting microservices architecture to work, taking back-end many different services and functionalities, wrapping them up into something that you can get to from either, like a WebSocket connection in your web browser, or from your Node.js client, or in many other software bindings of familiar languages, and not having to worry about the other side of that. So by having an account, you can just come into our server, sign up, deploy your services, and write all your applications still however you want, but without having to deal with kind of the extra burden and stuff. And I think that will help a larger audience who really wants to be able to build stuff, but they still kind of, they're slowed down by, they might have a small number of developers and they have to wait for them to become experts at C and Linux and deploying software, where they could do a really great job of just writing in that language they know the best and deploying applications that are more high level. And there's a lot of that to happen still. So I would say that next year you're probably going to see a lot more consolidation. That's my prediction, of larger companies sort of buying up little guys who are starting to make a splash. and kind of it'll show evidence that telecom is evolving to be completely digitized. Like everyone still uses mobile phones for talking, but as you see, like there's like Spectrum is just released to MVNO, and there's one from Comcast. There's really a convergence of data and voice, where you'll see that everything will be voice over IP, like even on your mobile phones very soon. You'll have once everything's digital, there's going to be an entire new gold rush of building applications on top of that framework, and the potential to get rid of the PSTN as we know it now, with physical wires, and make it completely digital on in the internet. So.
Cool. Yeah. So that just reminded me as you were talking. If you have not read our FreeSWITCH blog, we have Anthony's written a couple different blogs on there, and we are about to launch our SignalWire blog in 2019. So there's a couple of things that we'll be releasing on there as well. But it just reminded me of that blog you wrote about buzzwords, because I know you have specific feelings on buzzwords. Because once you start talking about the future of the future of technology in general, there's always a couple different things that you're going to hear for sure. There's a couple different words, and I know your blog talked about why, like, the FreeSWITCH team and SignalWire definitely is not just dropping buzzwords, and why other companies are. So just maybe for our viewers, like some of the things you talked about in the blog, like what are your thoughts on that, especially as telephony grows more popular? We're definitely seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, it's sort of like taking back the buzzwords in some cases, because API is thrown around. You have to say API to count in the world. So really thinking about what an API means and how a programmer chooses to use it, is very important to us. We've always done it. Like we have a C API that you can actually write modules against FreeSWITCH with, that are then exposed into network-based APIs. And with SignalWire, we really kind of strive to take that to the next level with, APIs that can actually create kind of a hybrid of like a, internet-enabled telecom application with possible using embedded video and audio or mobile devices. And the ones that we really care about, API and platform is another one. Everything is a platform now, but we really feel that it's important, if you're going to claim to be a platform, that you have to actually support stuff, because that's kind of where it comes from. So we put a lot of effort into that, dealing with integration with a bunch of different third-party stuff, and not just at a superficial level, but like, actually integrating it with functionality that is kind of otherwise really hard to get access to. Like we've gone through a lot of trouble of, we'll see something that everybody wants to be able to do, so we have to write our module to gateway that, and really kind of being able to do that is important to us. So we don't like to use buzzwords, but sometimes those are just the original terms that started out being how you describe stuff, and now they're buzzwords. So we have to kind of point that out sometimes. That we're still going to use them because
we used it first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my last question for today, unless of course you think of anything else that you'd like to talk about, it just whenever I talk to developers at ClueCon, they're always saying to me that like they love programming, of course, but they don't want to spend all their time working. Especially at ClueCon, we have our coder games, and the feedback I get all the time is like, well, I didn't come here today to work, I want to do something fun. So we're always challenging people to do something fun. And I know a lot of developers like to have like a side project that they're working on, just something that they really enjoy doing to get their creative juices flowing. So there are certain things that when you're like taking a break that you like to do for fun, just to like learn how to do, or kind of make you laugh, or something like that, something to just for fun, nothing too deep or anything like that?
That line's been pretty blurred for me, because sometimes even adding stuff to FreeSWITCH comes up as fun for me, but I've been known to get inspired and work on stuff, and then it turns into something. Even if I meant it to be fun, it might get stuck. Everyone likes it and it becomes a feature that I have to support. But when it comes to technology, it's fun to play around with IoT stuff. It's always fun, like making lights turn on.
Oh yeah, that was a theme of ClueCon a couple years ago. We always try to integrate that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like making Raspberry Pis into arcade emulators. That's fun. Anything that can run Donkey Kong or Super Mario Brothers.
All right. Well, that's all of the questions I have for now. Is there anything else any closing words, anything you'd like to end 2018 on?
Just thank everybody for being part of our community, and look forward to what we're doing next, because I think everyone will be super happy with what happens.
Good. We're all looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us on ClueCon Weekly today. That is all we have for today. I think it's back to you, Ken.
All right, guys. Does anybody have any last-minute questions for Anthony? We've been watching the Slack channel and the IRC channel, but I haven't seen anything yet.
Because they probably all went to have Christmas.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got from work on the day after Christmas.
Right?
Yeah.
Wait, Anthony, for the people out there, where can they contribute to the project? Remember the Christmas list and all that stuff?
The best way to contribute to the project is to start out by just joining the community, especially the IRC or Slack channel, because then you can find all the other people that are working on the community stuff, and you can find someone to kind of show you the ropes. There's a team that works on the wiki for those that don't like coding. There is just answering questions in the chat room. It's kind of like a little community garden of help. But it's always a good place to start. But just go to signalwire.community, join the Slack channel, and there's a FreeSWITCH and a FreeSWITCH dev channel that are hosted in there. And one is more about general FreeSWITCH questions, and the other one is about developer specific, if you were writing a module or something. So from there, you can basically find the kind of thing that you like to do and find someone that's already doing that, and they're all very helpful in getting you on board with different stuff. There's our Jira could always use more help. We have a lot of different Jiras we have to go over. There's thousands and thousands of proposed changes or bug reports, and it's hard to maintain those all with a small number of people. So it's always a great place to start. That's how we started. We went to Asterisk and we did the bug marshalling job for a year.
Cool. Anything else? Do you guys have any more questions?
All right. Yeah, it looks like I think that's probably all the questions from the community today. So thanks, Anthony, for joining us. Thanks, Abby, for having all these great questions for Tony today. Tony, any last parting words before we let you go back to work today and go back to hang out with your family?
Happy New Year.
All right, guys. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you very much, Abby. For the rest of you guys, thank you for joining us. It's been another eventful year for FreeSWITCH and the community at large. 1.8's out now. There'll be more releases of that coming soon, so you can check those out, and all the normal spots. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button down below, and then click the little bell next to it so you get the alerts when we add new videos. We'll have more of this coming up in the new year. So we'll see you guys back here right after the New Year's, and have a great week.
I forgot one announcement. We actually dropped 183 over the weekend. 183's out. We added a new module, Mod SignalWire. Mod SignalWire lets you interact with the SignalWire cloud, auto setup, ability to point numbers directly to your box, sets up its own Sophia profile. It's kind of like our first step in auto provisioning stuff from the SignalWire cloud. So if you're interested, check that out. It includes a handful of other fixes as well. So that is in the repos now.
Oh, that is super cool Christmas present from the FreeSWITCH team, guys. Go check it out. Anything else you want to say about that, Mr. Jarris?
That's it.
All right, cool. Thank you for that announcement, Mr. Jarris. You guys go check that out. It's available via freeswitch.com, freeswitch.org, and all the various locations there. And thanks again, guys. Hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and you're going to have a great New Year's. We'll see you back here next week.
You've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. Keep up with the latest happenings by subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit us at freeswitch.com.